Welcome to Profit and Prosper, a podcast for entrepreneurs who are ready to make some money while doing what they love. On this podcast, we're going to pull back the curtain and talk about all things business and money. But I promise you, this is not your typical boring numbers talk. I'm your host, Sarah Young, a CPA and CFO with over a decade of experience in finance, business, and leadership. I'm going to share everything I've learned from helping my clients grow more profitable businesses and keep more of what they earn while growing my own successful business along the way. You'll feel empowered and confident that you too can grow your wealth, live a rich life, and have an impact. Stick with me and you might even start to think that finance is fun. Let's dive in. This week, I have another amazing entrepreneur interview for you. I talked with Kyle King, who is the founder and CEO of The Writer's Game, which helps entrepreneurs and high-level executives write, publish, and market books so that they can build their brand, build their confidence, and grow their business. But as you'll hear in this episode, Kyle does so much more than that. I wanted to interview Kyle because I want you to get a behind-the-scenes view of someone who has created multiple income streams, who uses the income they generate to invest in alignment with their values, and who's transitioned out of the day-to-day stuff in their business. So Kyle has created multiple income streams within his business in addition to writing books, in addition to work that he does with schools, and his new ventures that you will hear us talk about. We talked about how he got started in his business and how he used leverage and existing customer relationships to massively increase his income. And we talked about how he's using the income that he generates to invest in other things that align with his values and his purpose, including having a positive impact on his family and his community. So grab something to write with because there are so many good nuggets in this episode that you are going to want to sit down and apply to your business. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to this week's episode of the Profit and Prosper podcast. I've got Kyle King here, and I'm so excited for this episode because I know before we even record this that Kyle's going to drop some truth bombs on us and some really good insights. So Kyle, thank you so much for being here.
Sarah, thank you so much for having me. Super excited to have this conversation. You're literally one of my favorite people. So
I love that.
Very excited to have this conversation with you.
Yes. Well, I'm excited to have this. I met you, I think it was last April via one of Lauren's programs. And then I listened to your podcast episode that you did with her. And I bookmarked, I have a playlist on my Spotify of like favorite podcast episodes ever. And I literally saved it to that one because you guys talked about such good stuff. So I just like to hear what you have to say about things. And I wanted to have you on because I'm starting a podcast series about how do you actually build wealth. A lot of times I talk about profitability and cash flow and all of that, but it really is about how do you build wealth. And I wanted to have you come on and talk about that because I think one, from what I see, you have built up several income streams. And you seem to just be constantly like thinking up new ways to monetize what you do. And I know that you do a lot of different things. And I also know that you also care about the impact you have on your family, your son, your community, the world at large. And so I want to talk about like, how do you use the wealth that you create in your business to do that? Because I think, a lot of times people assume like, oh, we're going to make a ton of money and just turn into greedy bastards, right? And so instead, like you said a couple of weeks ago at an event we were at, you said something along the lines of like, wealth really allows you to have influence in this world. And so I have so many things I want to talk about. Clearly, I'm excited. So first and foremost, tell me about you, about your businesses and books and all of that.
Of course. About me first, because I feel like oftentimes we talk about what we do instead of who we are. So I'm a father to a beautiful 6-year-old. He's literally my world. I would like to say that I'm a vessel. And I always say that because what I'm doing and who I am today may be different next year if I'm called in a different area. And I'm a man that really wants to serve my community. And how I serve my community, because I believe that everybody has their own way of doing it, is through creating different businesses that allow people to thrive in their own way. One of those businesses is the Writer's Game. The Writer's Game is a high-level publishing company and now an educational platform that helps high-level CEOs, entrepreneurs, and executives essentially scale their businesses through storytelling. I believe that the stories are the foundation that helps us become timeless and it's evergreen. And yes, we can teach people how to build buildings and how to build wealth, but it says that 60% of people after the second generation are going to lose it. And after the third generation, I believe the statistic is 90%. So if you pass down the blueprint and the roadmap on how you build wealth, it helps your family continue to be wealthy in the future. So that's one of my companies. I'm a now eight-time author. It's weird to even say that because I was so used to saying seven. I have another book coming out August 1st. And my goal was always before the age of 30 that I had 10 books, but I won't make it this year. On November 29th, I'll be launching my ninth book for my day before my son's birthday. So if you're listening to this in the fall of this year, then I'll be a 9-time author. And all of my books, and I know we're talking about wealth, all of my books have allowed me to create another stream of revenue because it's not just the book. And I know we're probably going to get into this a little bit later, but it's not just the book. And I'm going to put a pin on that and we'll talk about, how I've been able to leverage those later. And then now I'm building the Maryland project. I don't know if Sarah even knows this, but I'm getting ready to acquire 10 acres of land in Montgomery County in south of Greensboro, North Carolina. And the property is only going to be for single parents that are raising children. I came from a background of a father who was one of 13 that never had his mother. She died when he was 6 and he never had a father. And my mother was pregnant at the age of 13 with my older sister. And both of my parents have been able to accumulate wealth from resiliency and hard work and no educational background. So I wanted to now be able to provide for that generation that's now coming up. Because if my parents had the support growing up, I don't know who they would possibly be. So that's in a nutshell who I am. And I'm just here to serve.
Yes. Well, I mean, I wrote down just like half a page of things from what you just said. And so, no, I hadn't even heard of the Maryland project, but I know you also do other things, right? So you also do work in schools, correct?
Yes.
Oh, and you didn't
It's
even
so
think
weird.
about
Yeah.
that.
I didn't even think about that. So yeah, so we have an educational platform that has 30,000 students on it as well. We help students learn financial literacy, entrepreneurship, information technology, and real estate as well. I believe those are the pillars to our world that we have to understand technology. We have to understand how real estate works. We have to be financially literate, and everybody should be an entrepreneur. That doesn't mean that you're owning the business or running it, but I believe that everybody should have some type of entrepreneurial passions and endeavors. And then we build curriculums for schools. We do a lot of different things, but I guess my passion projects are definitely the Writer's Game and the Maryland project.
Yes. Well, and that was really what I wanted to talk about is because there's the statistic a lot of us have heard is that millionaires have 7 income streams on average, right? And so I think there's this like chicken and the egg of are you a millionaire because you have 7 income streams or do you have 7 income streams because you're a millionaire? And really, it's you start with one and you build that up and then you take a piece of that cash flow and plow it into another one. And then you've got 2, and then you have 2 streams of cash flow, and then you just keep going, right?
Of course.
So, what was your first income stream that you had?
That's a great question. It was earned income, right? And what that means is that essentially money that you're getting for time that you spend or something that you're doing. So I had a job. And a lot of people, any 9-to-5er, please don't leave your job because it's the worst mistake that I made. I was so quick to jump out of, corporate America and just start building my entrepreneurial journey. But that capital that I could have kept and that, $6,000 a month coming in to fuel my business would have been able to help me accelerate it a lot faster. So at the beginning, I had a job. I was working at Johnson and Johnson as a college graduate. I was making $100,000, but I wanted to be an entrepreneur more than I understood the value of money. I'm going to say that again. I wanted to be an entrepreneur more than I understood the value of money. And that was my biggest mistake back then. And that led me to getting fired from that job because I wanted to be more of an entrepreneur and wasn't delivering in that job. And after that, I was left with no sources of income. And then 30 days later, I focused in on being an entrepreneur, writing this book, launching this book, and I generated $20,000 in 30 days from that book. So a lot of people, I think that earned income was my first revenue stream, hands
Yes.
down.
And then the next one was the book.
No, dividend income was next because I always had stock portfolio.
Yep.
I was still making money from my stocks. And then rental income was third. So like, and hopefully you guys are writing this down, right? So earned income, my job, when I lost that, I still had stocks and stock shares and everything. After that, then rental income was third for me. And not just renting homes or your cars, you could also rent out clothes. You can rent out your time as well. All right. So I was renting out time to being able to do other things. And then the books came after that. Yeah.
If you're enjoying my podcast, then you are going to love my exclusive weekly email series, Profit and Prosper Millionaire Mondays. As a business owner, you have limitless potential for the amount of cash flow you can create in your business, but your journey to building wealth might not feel all that straightforward. To convert your cash flow into real wealth, you need to do a bit of planning and strategizing so that you can be wealthy and be well, reaching financial independence and eventually retiring or relaxing early at your lake house, which is my plan. In my Millionaire Mondays email series, I share tactics and strategies for using your business to generate your first $1 million in net worth in the same approachable way that you get in the podcast. Sign up for my exclusive emails for free at profitandprosper.co/millionaire. So when you say you were running out time, what do you mean?
I think oftentimes when we think about rental income, we only think about like renting your house or renting a room in your house or renting in your garage or renting like specific assets. What I mean by renting my time is that you can get paid based upon your skill set and your talent. So if I can come in and I can teach you how to do something and I get paid for a speaking engagement, I've now rented my time out and you've paid me for that, essentially, for that service in a sense. However, what I've learned as an entrepreneur is how to multiply my time so that I no longer have to be anywhere and now I can be everywhere. And you're still getting the same content and the same level of value, but now I can be in 10 places at once. And I turn that into royalty income. And that's like my major source of income now.
So that's called leverage, right? For people listening. And so I think that to your point, a lot of us quit our jobs because we really can't wait to start running a business. But most business owners, and I mean, still to me, to an extent, if we stop working, we stop making money, right? And so I think the shift that happens to going from working in the business all the time to really being a business owner and having wealth, which I would define ultimately as time freedom, right? Like I want to be able to stop working and I still make money. And that's what I'm like building up in my business. So I've only been full-time for like a year and a half. So I've still got a ways to go. But I think that that's what you're really talking about, right? Is I think you can actually do that while you still have a job if you do it the right way from the beginning and use that leverage, right? To like use other people's time and capital to like build out systems and processes so that when you go full-time in your business, you're not just trading time for money, right? So how did you make that shift then?
So one of the questions that I always get, right, is like, what was your motivator? And it kind of aligns with how did you make that shift? So at the time I had a 1-year-old son. My parents gave me 60 days to figure it out, or they were going to put me out of their house in Atlanta. So I didn't really have a choice. And I think oftentimes our biggest motivators and what helps us shift is our circumstance, right? And I was not happy with the man that I had become based upon my decisions. And that's one thing that I've grown to really recognize is that we are responsible for the circumstance that we're in. we're responsible in the places that we're in. And if I take responsibility and hold myself accountable, I had to make a shift. So it was interesting because later in that day when I got fired, I ran into my pastor at the time. He was literally at the gym. It was crazy. I didn't even know he lived around where my parents lived. And then later in that day, to a now really good friend of mine, David Shands. Um, and it was so crazy. And his statement to me, both of their statements were the same: just do it. Like, stop fearing whatever the outcome would be, just do it and follow the process. So I just did it. And I started reaching out to as many people as I knew. And that's why I always talk about the power of your relationships, and relationships are currency. And I reached out to so many people, and we pre-sold 1,000 copies of my book, 1,000 copies at $20. And the book wasn't even done yet. It wasn't out. It was still going through editing, and I was super down. And I was like, wow, I have something here. I really have something here. And from there, we then ended up launching the book. We built a webinar series about the book. Then we built a course. Then we built a curriculum that went into the school system. And then I started selling the book to actual school systems. And then we created a series so that once the school finished that first book, then we had 2 additional books that they could buy into. And then they started paying us essentially licensing fees throughout the year.
You built upon what you already did, right? I think that's a really great point, because so many people think to make more money, I've got to get a bigger audience and go make more sales to new customers. But we have to think about lifetime value, right, of the customer. And if you can keep getting like repeat revenue, like, oh, great, you finished my book. Do you want to learn this next thing? Like, this is taking you on that journey to the next step, like, money in your pocket, right? You don't have to go do more sales and marketing.
I think so many people forget. And if anybody's listening right now, if I don't say anything of value today, this is the one thing that I want you to get. It costs less for you to nurture your current client rather than going out and acquiring new clients. Customer experience is much more valuable than client acquisition. And oftentimes, as business owners and entrepreneurs, we're so focused on client acquisition and lead generation, rather than increasing your churn revenue and not having so much turnover within your business. So when I started to see an uptick in the value that I was having, and that they were willing to keep paying for stuff and they were asking for more, I was like, well, I would rather deal with 10 clients that really like me and that I can make shifts and build relationships, rather than continuing to try to find an additional 10 and then have a book of business that is 1,000 clients. So you can become $100,000, you can build $100,000 business, $500,000 $1 million company with literally 2 handfuls of people, if they're the right people. And then you're offering them, multiple things that are valuable. So if you focus on building an ascension model, where it's like, here, I'm going to give you this for, let's say, $19.97, and it's valuable, but now this qualifies you for something for $2.97. And then I'm going to then upgrade you to something that $9.97. And then I'm going to upgrade you per student or per client for $3 per client per month. Now you create a recurring revenue stream. And then you have like a $30,000 package. That one client, based upon what you said, Sarah, your lifetime value, now just paid you $100,000. You get 10 of those.
You're done. I've been thinking a lot. I've had this conversation a lot lately about people still having this employee mindset of continuing to rent your time, right? Like, I do the work here and then I get paid for this work, as opposed to making that shift from like, using leverage and you not having to put your direct time into making money from a client. And for me, I think what comes up a lot is I'm so conditioned, because I worked in the Big Four. I worked at a public company. I'm so conditioned to having to work hard that it actually takes effort for me to step back and just like let it be easy, right?
Of course.
Like, and I don't know if that's just like a me thing, but I think that you have to get into this entrepreneurial mindset of like, you've built this and the cash flow is coming. And it doesn't necessarily require a lot of quote unquote like hard work to make it, right? And that's the freedom that we all want, I think.
It takes time. And I think a lot of people, Sarah, and you probably know this, they don't want to commit to the actual process. If you really committed to a transformational process for 30 days and you documented exactly what you did for 30 days, and then you had a result. And then now you just go off and talk about what you did for 30 days and get people that result. And you already have everything documented. There's a course, there's a book. It's already
Yes.
done. You just document your processes.
Why do you think people like to listen to podcast episodes like this and courses and not actually go do the thing?
Because that is the thing. They feel like because they are reading a book and 3 chapters of a book or listening to 30 minutes of a podcast, that is them doing the thing. And it's like this false sense of hard work that, oh, I learned today or I motivated myself today. But I don't even really listen to many podcasts anymore. My girlfriend, she was saying earlier, like, hey, do you want to go to this conference? I know you like this guy. It's like, no, I don't need any more information. We went to the Grow with Video conference in Vegas a few weeks ago, and Alex Hormozy and Gary Vee and all these people were there. And I thought about you when I met Alex, by the way. And all of these people were there. And I have enough information in the season that I'm in. Now it's time to act. So I know how to balance, and I've become disciplined in balancing information versus activation. So you can only get so much information in a period of time. You need to stop consuming more information and go implement the information that you learned. And then when you get stuck, now it's information time.
Yes.
But oftentimes, Sarah, we just want information. So it feels like we're growing, but we're not doing anything.
Yes. People think that there is a secret that they don't know to making more money and not paying taxes and increasing their cash flow. And I'm like, there is no secret. Like, I have told people on my podcast, on my Instagram, like, this is how you do it. And you just have to go do it. Right. And I think, and I fall prey to this too. I think, like, is there something I'm not doing? Like, this isn't happening fast enough. Like, I want more customers. I want to grow my business. And I think that it also is just impatience, at least for me. So yes, identifying, like, I talk about roadblocks and knowing what you need to invest in next. And I think really, I had somebody at a conference once saying, like, I'm spending all my money to build out all these like back end systems and processes and social media posting and blah, blah, blah. But like, how do I make more money? Because I need to go get investors at this point to keep paying things. And I'm like, well, what's the real problem here? Are you making any sales?
Exactly.
No, you have to go actually do the thing. So yes, that was like totally off topic. I didn't want to even
go down. It's valuable though. Like, your problems that you think are problems really aren't. They're just distractions.
Yes.
And oftentimes, and as we grow, a mentor taught me this. He says, as you grow, your distractions are disguised in opportunities. And the more money you make or the more success that you have, your distractions are disguised in opportunities. They're bigger checks. They're places that will pay you, but it doesn't align with your vision. And it moves you slowly and more away from what you're actually called to do, rather than staying grounded in who you are. And I think if I could give one piece of advice, if you want to build wealth, you have to become a better person. Because as I've become a better person and as I've been more integral and disciplined and focused on my follow through and committed, it's allowed me to transfer that same energy over to how I manage my money and how I look at investments and how I analyze risk. If I can't analyze risk in relationships or discern with people, that same transferable skills will come over to my business or my life, right? So become a better person and get some core values so that you can assess different things in business and entrepreneurship or with your finances a lot better and appropriately as well.
Yes. So, well, I think it's interesting you say that because I went to Kiana's brunch last weekend. And one of the things that I wrote down was like, how do I like live more in this like purpose that I have for my life? Right. And I think that to your point, like distractions, like you have to know what that purpose is and live in integrity with that, because you'll end up wasting your money over here. You're going to spend your time doing things you don't need to do. And you're never going to get to that place of like what that looks like for you. Right. So what is your purpose?
That's a great question. I don't know my purpose, but I have a purpose statement, right? So I live by I call it my top 5. And a mentor, again, recommended this years ago. He said, Kyle, what's your top 10? What's your top 10? What do you mean? He said, if you can have any 10 things in life, what would they be? I'm like, I don't know. So a lot of them were superficial. But then as I continued to go through it and go through it, he compared every single one against the next until you actually created in order what your top five were. So my number one thing before I die, everybody's going to die. I want to be known as a father, as an amazing father, as an amazing husband, and as an amazing man that served my community. Like I want to be acknowledged as somebody that was truly valuable and loved people and that was genuine and just authentic. That's number one. Because my family is super important to me, and how people view me in my family is super important. Number two is that oftentimes I believe that we look at women as they are the ships and we are the tide as men. But I believe that women are the tide and men are the ships. And as you guys rise, it ultimately rises us as well. So my number two, interestingly, is I want to be able to marry someone that I'm truly proud of and I can take a back seat while that person rocks the stage. And you saw some of that this past weekend, right? Number three is that affordable housing is super important to me. And I want to be able to build, I gave a little bit about my parents a little bit earlier. So I wanted to build an affordable housing community that helps single parents raise children in more of an equitable and affordable housing way, in an affordable way, so that they can help these kids transition into Ivy League institutions. And I'm working on that. My number four is that I want to be able to help build an educational technology that impacts 10 million kids across the world. And I want to win a Nobel Peace Prize for that. And again, we talked about that earlier. We're building that. And number five, interestingly, now is I want to be able to build a university for students that come from tough backgrounds that didn't necessarily believe that they were going to go to college. And I want to be able to build a university that is only focused on entrepreneurship and technology. And I want the professors to be people that have built multi-million and billion-dollar corporations, because oftentimes I believe that professors and teachers don't have the expertise that they're actually teaching, and they're teaching from textbooks rather than from experience. So I don't align myself with anyone or anything that can't align with my top five. So I don't necessarily believe in purpose. I believe in purpose statements, because that is going to allow me to be intentional with all of the things that I do moving forward. So all of my books, all of my businesses, all of my relationships are in alignment with those five things. And anybody that's listening, I would challenge you to write down your five and see if your time that you've been spending and your conversations that you've been having and the relationships that you've been nurturing, do they align with your top five?
Yes. Well, and I think anybody listening can also hear how the things that you have built and the money that you're making, how you're turning that around and applying that to the things that align with your purpose and having an impact on the people around you, right? And I think that's like the real point that I want to make sure we make, is that you can build your wealth. And sure, I'm sure you have things personally that are superficial that you're like, I want to go fly first class. I'm making stuff up and you can tell me later, but I want to have like a really nice house, a nice car, go on whatever that is. And you're also doing these things, right? And I actually think a really great point is a lot of people I see tend to wait to build wealth until they have their like business situation perfectly figured out. And they wait until like, I'm going to start investing in things when I get to seven figures in revenue, right? Or I'm going to wait until now. So like, but for you to be the age that you are, which is what, 30,
29,
20, you're like, I don't have the 3 in front yet. For you to be 30, to have built up all these things, like you start early and you do it often, right?
Of course.
Yes.
Of course. I learned this, and I don't know who taught me this, but 28% of your mortgage should only make up 20% of your income, or 28%. And your car payment should only make up 10% of your income. And I think oftentimes we don't really like live within our means. And I'm actually in the process of thinking about selling my car, because I listened to something that Alex Hormozy said. He was running a 9-figure company and he was still driving a Honda. And I think oftentimes we're focused on looking good rather than actually doing good. And we don't do good because we say that we don't have the capital, but we would rather look good than actually put that capital in places that will allow us to do good and impact other people, right? So hopefully you guys didn't miss that listening. And me, I really want to focus on empowering people more than me buying Gucci or Rolexes or flying private. It's not that those things don't matter to me as much anymore, because especially when you've done it, it doesn't bring you a sense of fulfillment. But being able to visualize, I walked the property a few weeks ago, and being able to visualize like, oh my God, like I can only see like families walking and they're actually able to live like they want here. And it was because of you and your savings and your discipline and your hard work has allowed other people to have a home and to have jobs. I think that is just, it brings me chills just thinking of that. And I would rather have that than someone compliment me on my car.
Yes. Well, you have to spend your money on what matters to you,
Of
right?
course.
My husband and I are having this, we occasionally have this conversation because I want to like redo our backyard. Like, I just want to have, like, this is one of those things that's important to me. Like, I want to have a nice outdoor space. Our deck is like falling off our house, but I don't just want to like redo the deck for like $5,000. I want like to fully redo it. And he's like, we have investment goals that we need to do first. And so my conundrum is like, how can I make enough money so that I can have both, and not feel guilty about spending money on things that are just for me to enjoy my life, but also to do things that impact other people. But I think like making sure you're spending and investing in alignment with the things that you want, like you do, right? And for the record, I saw that post about the car too. I drive a 2007 Honda Accord
Ah,
and I will redo my backyard before I go buy a new car because I do not care about a car. I drive literally to my office and to daycare every day. Like, I don't need a fancy car, I just don't care.
we're on the same page there.
Yeah. Yes. And so for anybody listening, we've mentioned Alex Hormozy a few times. Clearly, like, we're fans. So go follow him on Instagram. He has this really interesting business model where he is like an investor coach for multi-million dollar businesses. And he's like, my clients are $3 million businesses and up. So I'm going to give you all of this really amazing free information that he learned from building multiple multi-7-figure or more 8-figure businesses totally for free. Like, this is stuff you could get in courses out there for like thousands and thousands of dollars. And he just does it for free because he wants you to get to a point where he can invest in your business and make money off of you. Right. So I wrote down something you said early on, and I want to talk about that. And that is this idea of generational wealth. I think the statistic, I don't remember, I've read the same one where it's like, I can pass down money to my kids, right? Well, I have one, so I'll say singular kid. I can give him money, but if I don't teach him the skills of how to be an entrepreneur or how to manage that money to build his own wealth from it, then he is likely not going to have as much to pass on to the next generation, right? So, as a father, how do you teach your son, you said he's 6, right?
He'll be 7 in November.
Yes. So, like, from an early age, and I asked you this a few weeks ago too. I have a 2-year-old. I'm like, how do you teach them? Like, what things are you teaching him so that he can learn how to do this, so that you can hand him this legacy that you leave, right? Potentially, and he can run with it and also build his own.
There's 2 things that I'm teaching Carter right now that he doesn't know have to do with financial literacy. Number 1 is opportunity cost, and number 2 is delayed gratification. So we go to Frankie's probably every week. So we go there every week, and I tell him every single time we go, you get $50. You get $50. And so he's now figuring out like, all right, I want to go to this place because they have points. I'm not just going to buy candy. I'm not going to try to get the bear. And I never get it because it's like no one ever wins the bears anywhere. But now he's strategically thinking about where can you go and play your points, because he wants a toy at the end and he wants to go trade in the points for the toy. But now, as he's gotten older, it's very interesting because now he's going only to the games he knows he can win. And now he's going to the games where he gets the highest amount of points. But then he goes in and he used to spend all of the points. How many points do I have, Dad? Okay, you have 2,000. All right, I'm going and spending all the points. But now he's like, okay, I'm going to get one toy today and I'm going to keep the points so that we can save them so I can go get that big thing up there. So now on that same card that we have, he probably has like 20,000 points. And the first thing that I would teach him, and anybody that wants to teach their child, is every single time that you give them money, it's not all to be spent. And if I would have learned this early, it's not all to be spent. It doesn't all need to be going somewhere. And you wait and you wait and you play the long game. The second thing, or the first thing that I said, is opportunity cost. If we choose to do this, Carter, we're not doing this. It's not that Dad has resources and we can do all of these different things, but it's, what do you really value more right now? Do you want to go to Frankie's? Do you want to go to the trampoline park, or do you want to go to Ninja Nation? Okay, well, this place is this amount, this place is this amount, this place is this amount. You have $100 today that you can spend anywhere, anything that you want to do. Okay, Dad. All right, well, can I only get $20? And he's like trying to negotiate with me. Can I only get $20? And let's do ice cream and Ninja Nation, and then I'll keep the 80. So then he puts the rest of the money, and we bought this little ATM machine for his room. So then he puts the money in here, and now he has like $600 in his little ATM machine, because now he wants to buy more games. So now when he goes and does different things. So the two things are opportunity costs and weighing opportunities and everything that you do, and then delayed gratification.
They're so smart, aren't they?
Definitely.
Like
Definitely.
it's so interesting. I mean, obviously my 2-year-old is not, he doesn't understand any of this, but I'm like really excited to teach him because I mean, I don't know if this was your experience, but I grew up and we didn't talk about money.
Oh,
You
no.
know, my parents certainly taught me a few things like what is a mortgage, right? But we didn't talk about the skills of saving or investing, or it was very taboo to even talk about like, what do you do? Like, what do you make for a living? Like, we just don't talk about it. And I think that it's still something that since it's been ingrained in me, like doing what I do, I'm trying to be more comfortable with like sharing these things out loud because I grew up that way. So I think that it's really important to, talk about these things with your children, even if like I don't want to force him to be an entrepreneur, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I do see these kids in our neighborhood who do the lemonade stands all the time. And I'm like, that is just like, I'm going to teach my kid, like, you can make so much more money than running like no lemonade stands allowed. Nobody wants lemonade, right?
No. Or you can make the lemonade and then sell it to the lemonade stand.
Oh, smart. Yes. No. So I love that. And I think that, yeah, I mean, thinking about generational wealth, like I personally will not have an inheritance that I get because my family, we just didn't like, they don't have wealth to pass on. But I very much like, it's important to me that we all want the best for our kids, right? We set them up in that way and leave that legacy for them. But I think even more importantly than leaving the money is like teaching them the skill sets that, you've talked about. So I think that is amazing. The last thing I want to talk about, I want to ask you is back to that question of influence. And so you said this to me a few weeks ago. You said that really like money is influence. So tell me, what do you mean by that?
So money doesn't buy you happiness. That is true, but it will buy you freedom, choice, and influence. And I believe that 100%. And why I believe that is because every decision that we have oftentimes is influenced by the money that we either have or we don't have. The cars that we drive, the interest rates that we're given, the houses that we live in, the neighborhoods that we go to, how we travel, the resorts that we travel to or choose not to travel to, all of these different things, the schools that we send our kids to, or the district that we have to live in, and then the schools that are in that district, everything's involving money. The restaurants that we have access to, the food that we have access to, everything, right? However, let's not just look at those materialistic things or superficial things, right? Let's look at it from this perspective. You cannot impact people in the way that you want to impact people without capital. I can't say that I want to shift the educational system and I want to go in and do this if I don't have the capital to actually build one and then hire the right educators to do a case study on what needs to actually happen. I can't influence political decisions if I have no capital. I can't do or help with zoning or laws to be changed or some type of influence. And I believe that it comes from capital, 100%. And why I believe that is because it's like I was making money, $100,000 here and there, right, at the beginning of my career, and I'm grateful for that. Let me not say that's like a little bit of money, but I can't go out and take 10 kids to a Panthers game and then go to the back and then meet. Like, I can't create the experiences that I want to create in my head because those things take capital. They do. I can't build an educational enrichment center from ground up exactly how I want it because I know this is going to benefit these children without capital. If I have a vision in my head, then oftentimes it's either going to take a lot of time or a lot of money or a lot of people that can allow you to get those different things. And a friend of mine, a mentor now, Marty McCarthy, he's a educational guru. He's built like 15 schools here in the Charlotte area. Somebody that I highly respect and admire. I asked him, I was like, Marty, what is it going to take for me to get connected to some of your contacts? He said, it depends on how much you're willing to spend. At that moment, I said, okay, well, what's a range? He said, well, to get in some of these rooms, it's this cost. To get in some of these rooms with Hugh McCall or these types of people, it's this cost. And it's not necessarily about getting in the room. It's about keeping other people out of the room. Because some of the highest level conversations are not marketed on Instagram and are not at conference centers, or you can't pay essentially by way of a ticket to get into these rooms. It's about relationship, right? So that's just my perspective. It's not like a fully fleshed out idea, but I believe that the influence that I want to make is going to take capital. It's going to take me, $10 million to build this affordable housing community. There's a cost to impacting people. Like, I think about a lot of grassroots organizations here in Charlotte and around the country that have amazing ideas, amazing, and they have amazing models. They have even publicity that support those ideas and media campaigns, but they don't have capital and they don't have revenue, so that they can't put a dent in these specific areas or challenge specific people if they don't have capital. So instead of me having to go to the bank and having to be a slave to the interest rate and a slave to what the bank has to give me, or have to go out here and have this GoFundMe approach and asking everybody for capital to do the things that I believe that I was destined to do, I would rather just make a whole bunch of money and then take percentage of that money and give it to the places that I would rather give it, so that I can choose and have freedom to do with it the way that I believe that I can.
I think right now, so it's June, early June as we're recording this. And I think that, this example of like, we've had all these mass shootings lately, and you can see clearly the influence of money on politicians, right? Because like the gun lobby, is it the biggest lobby that we have? Yes. The gun lobby gives so much money to these politicians who have the power to influence laws, right? And so like this is a really great example of like money creates influence in this, in my opinion, not for good over here. Like in my family, we have gun owners in our family. I know how to shoot a gun, but I still think this is like a bad influence. And so on the flip side, what if we have, this is my like purpose, I think, or my purpose statement that's not fully fleshed out, but like, how can we have more business owners who are quote unquote, like normal people who aren't these like people traditionally in power? Like, how can we get more of us with more money so that we can like begin to compete with the gun lobbies of the world, right? Like that's real influence. And I think that I work with a lot of women, as you know. I have so many women who say to me, I'm not in my business to really make a ton of money. Have you ever heard that?
Yes. And interestingly, I had a mentor check me on that. This was probably a year and a half ago. I said the same exact thing, Sarah. I said, I'm not in the business to make money. I'm here to help people. And since that conversation, we've like 15x'd our revenue, because she was like, yes, you are. And then she had this conversation with me about like, what do you really, she asked me, what do you really want to accomplish in life, Kyle? And then I talked about my top 5 and I talked about all these things. She said, you think that stuff, you can pay for that
Free.
from Impact? She said, do you think Impact, you can take Impact to the bank and get a loan from the bank from Impact? No, it takes income. It takes revenue. It takes years of experience. It takes all these things. So it changed my whole perspective.
Yes.
Whole perspective. And now, yes, you can still empower people. But if you look at some of these schools that are being built or communities that are being built or these apartment complexes, all of these different things that are housing people, they have money to do it. And just think about all of the different things that you do that you could do if you had a little bit more capital. Think about the experiences. Like my parents were amazing. They took us to great places that I thought were great, growing up. But I have so much more now, and I can take Carter everywhere. Like we're going to Europe this summer, and we're going, and just because we can. And I want to be able to create experiences within his life that he'll never forget. And I want to increase the bar. And if every single one of my friends, he's a relationship coach, him and his wife, they're marriage coaches. And he said, I want to compete in love every single day. And I want to see who can love each other better and who can love each other more. I believe it's the same in our finances and in our business, like, and in our families. Like, I want to be better than my dad because my dad was absolutely amazing. He set the foundation for me, but how can I be better than him? And then my son, how can he be better than me? And then if we're just trying to be better than the generation before us and then move the generation after us forward, then we'll continue to increase and we'll never lose any momentum. But I think we get stagnant, we get complacent, and we become okay with where we are. I'm not. I celebrate my wins, but I'll never sit within my wins.
Yes. Well, I'm glad that you said that you say that too, that you said that to yourself a while ago. And I think I know that many of you listening tell this to yourself all the time. I think that it's sort of like a fear response of like, to me, it is. I think for a lot of women, it is. It's like this idea of actually like being successful and being wealthy is actually scary. And so we tell ourselves like, well, I just want to help people, right? Because that's safe. And so I think it's interesting you said that too, but it all comes back like, yes, we are here to make money and you can influence your family, your communities. You can do things like Kyle. I hope that people listening, you're inspired thinking about like, well, all the different ways you can have a positive impact on your community. You're creating jobs. Like for me, I stop and think like I have 4 people on my team. Plus, I'm the primary breadwinner right now for my family. Like that's amazing, right?
Yeah.
The fact that I'm able to support not just me, but also 4 other people, like that is just unreal, right? Like think about that influence, and you can only do that if your business makes money. So, okay, what is next for Kyle?
So as of right now, what is next is that I am launching a new book on August 1st. It's going to be called The Writer's Game, the 6-step proven method to scaling your business through storytelling. And then all of my years of course launches and business launches and all that, it's going to put it all in a book and you're going to be able to get everything. And the first 1,000 copies are going to be completely free to people as well. And then on November 3rd or November 29th, I'm releasing another book called The Dad in Me. And it's a guide for fathers to be able to better equip themselves to be better fathers and to raise sons within America. And then on August 13th, I'm having a Dad in Me luncheon. It's going to be really focused on impacting this year. So at the beginning of this quarter, we sat down and went over our goals. And some of these goals are miracle goals, some of the things that I didn't believe that I could accomplish because of what's on my plate. But with the right accountability, with the right intentionality, and with the right action and priority, I believe you can accomplish everything. So this year alone, 2 books are coming out and we have 2 events planned. And then moving into next year, we're going to break ground on the Maryland project. And that's going to be huge. And that will be launched and everything next year as well. And then for my 30th birthday, again, this year, we're giving out $30,000 in scholarships to students to be able to go to college. So I'm excited about that as well.
There you go. Using your money for good, right? I think that's what it's about. Okay, this is my last question I ask everybody who comes on. And we've been talking about wealth. And so I specifically ask, what is an upgrade that you want to make in your life that you could never have afforded before, that your business will afford you? And I ask because I think it's important to talk about how we have fun with spending our money. And so I'll give you my example. my ultimate life upgrade is I want to have a lake house with a boat, a nice lake house, right? So what's yours?
Interestingly, I'm interested to see your response. I want to go on a year sabbatical. I want to take off a whole year, not do any work, and I want to travel the world. And I just want to write about my experiences and come back and launch a book. That's it. I don't need to buy anything. I don't need a house. I don't need a plane. I don't need a helicopter or anything. I want to go on a year sabbatical with my parents. And I want to be able to afford them, or to be able to afford both of them as well as me, and then literally travel to any country that we want and just learn, read, enjoy culture, and then come back.
Well, that is absolutely a life upgrade. So I think that's an amazing goal. Awesome.
Definitely.
All right, Kyle, where can we find you?
Kyle S. King on YouTube, Kyle S. King on LinkedIn, and Kyle S. King on Instagram. Pretty pretty simple.
Easy enough. Well, I mean, I literally just have a page of notes of things I wrote down. I hope everybody listening to this got some really great insights out of it about how do you build up multiple income streams within your business, having multiple different businesses. I mean, how do you use your wealth to create more good and live in line with your purpose statements, right? With in integrity with what you want to do and have the impact that you want to have. And, hopefully you heard Kyle talk about like, your business is there ultimately to make money, right? To not just support you, but to do other things. And so really like take that in and listen and know that it is okay to make money and you can do some amazing things out of it. And I hope that you got inspired to do some of that by listening to Kyle. So Kyle, thank you so much for coming on. I think this was amazing and I'm sure I will talk to you soon.
For sure. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. Now, I want you to go take some action. What's one thing you can do this week to create more profit in your business? Send me a DM on Instagram at YoungCoCFO and share your action item with me. If you have a question or topic you'd like me to dive into, or if you're feeling empowered about taking charge of your finances, let's continue the conversation. Go to profitandprosper.co to submit a question or topic for me to talk about on the show. And because we all profit and prosper better with friends, please leave me a review on Apple Podcasts, subscribe wherever you listen, and share the episode. Make sure you tag me at YoungCoCFO on Instagram so I can give you some love, and I'll see you in the next episode.